This is the problem with wearing a turtleneck. I have no idea where to clip this thing. Whew, this is gonna be fun. Okay, I think this is the best we'll be able to do, so we're just gonna roll with it. What does a teacher have to do to get students to follow procedures around here? Seriously. Hello historians, welcome back. You know me, I'm Cecilia Tamez. I'm a veteran educator, consultant, and instructional strategist, and I help passionate history teachers just like you feel confident and competent as they facilitate student-centered learning in their classrooms. Shameless plug. This video is sponsored by Teach Like an Influencer Academy. And if you've not heard of it, this is my personalized mentorship program for history teachers where I help you master the skill of facilitating effective, engaging instruction while fostering safe, collaborative, and inclusive classroom management. And also by the League of Extraordinary Teachers, a vibrant history teaching community where I share behind the scenes content, first access, and more. All right, so you know the drill. I got my notes. We're ready to rock and roll. So one of the things that I've noticed is that sometimes we get so disheartened when things are just not going our way despite our best efforts that we either A, get disheartened and essentially quit our procedures altogether, or B, we erroneously believe that we have to overhaul the whole thing, just throw it all away. And because our confidence is rattled, we can easily fall into this trap. Even a veteran educator, I know I did. However, I don't want you working more than you really have to. So in today's video, I'm actually going to propose some adjustments you can make to see if that gets your students rolling with your class procedures. The first reason that your students may not be following your class procedures is because you assume that your students should, quote unquote, already know. Now, you and I both know our students have gone through years of schooling, usually by the time they get to us, especially if you're teaching secondary. So the assumption is, well, this is common sense stuff. You should already know that obviously we do not run into class or nosedive into class when the tardy bell rings. And so we feel like we don't have to explain how we want things done. And the thing is, when you omit expressing your expectations in the way that you want to see things get done, because what may have worked for teachers in previous years may not be the way you want things done, may not work for you. Maybe you have a special setup for a game or an activity. Maybe you're visiting the library. We cannot assume that our students already know. And the thing is, when students are not doing things the way you need them to get done for their safety, for their well-being, that's when we start feeling that sense of disappointment of, this is common sense. How do you not know? Because they don't. And the thing is, if you don't explain how you need things to get done, how you want things to get done, your students will assume. Because that's one thing about working with young students, they're gonna get very creative. And unfortunately, if you allow your students to get creative with class procedures, they might create something that you were never expecting. The second reason why your students may not be following your class procedures is because you have too many unnecessary or irrelevant procedures. Okay, so enter my first year teaching. I load up on reading all the authority education books on preparing for your teaching career. And as a consequence, I had an entire list of procedures because, you know, I wanted to be really prepared. And y'all know how I feel about being prepared. It is essential, but I wanted a procedure for every single itty bitty little situation going on. And I'm gonna read you from my list. I had a procedure. So if you didn't do your homework, you had to fill out this red slip, and you would turn that in as your assignment. If you were absent, there were multi-step procedures to accessing your folder and signing off on it and all that jazz. If you were tardy, you had to log yourself in, write down an explanation as to the why, drop off this pass. You get the picture. I'm not gonna stand here and tell you that those things are wrong or that you can totally omit that, because again, only you know your classroom, only you know what is truly essential for you to track, for you to monitor, and the structure that your students need in order to thrive in your classroom. However, practicality needs to be the name of the game. And this is also for us, it's not just for our students. The more practical something is, the more likely we as teachers who have a bazillion tabs open on any given day in our mind, but the more practical something is, the more likely we will be able to follow through and remember to follow through with something. Now, on a final note, Again, I was that teacher that wanted to be very prepared for everything. And again, preparation is important. We are not discarding that by any stretch of the imagination, but I want to advise you against sharing all, and I mean all, your procedures at the beginning of the school year all at once. You don't want to procedure dump on your students. At the start of the school year, you only want to share the procedures that are essential for the beginning class operations. And then as situations arise, then I instruct my students on the procedures, how we're going to get this done, what are my expectations for this place, and then we go do said things. Otherwise, it's going to feel overwhelming for your students and nothing will stick. The third reason your students may not be following your class procedures is because you made your procedures, and this ties in with our previous topic, you made procedures too complicated to follow through with. This might be with the time it takes to do something. This might mean with the accessibility of something. So if I'm having them log in and check in if they're late and sign this clipboard and then sign this next clipboard and then you go to the folder and then you pick up your slip and they're in different locations of the classroom, it's exhausting and it may even cause classroom management issues. I couldn't expect my students to follow the procedure or help a substitute follow the procedure or help me follow the procedures for emergency situations if I don't have things accessible for them. Now, of course, we're going to be selective about what we have accessible, but important things. Now, I do talk a little bit more about the importance of the classroom environment in a video that I'm going to go ahead and link up above for you so that you can watch it after this video is over. But one final recommendation, don't be intimidated or scared about changing a procedure based on, as you get to know your class, if you see that your procedure needs a certain adjustment or it's not working for them as you intended, don't be intimidated at modifying your procedures. It does not undermine your authority or your image as a facilitator. As a matter of fact, this is you being proactive, being aware of your student needs, and ensuring that you are supporting your students in having the classroom environment that they want, that helps them feel safe and that helps them learn. The next reason why your students may not be following class procedures is because you didn't explain the why. Now, you will hear me talk about this in a lot of my videos, but essentially the factor that you're missing to get your students to roll with your class procedures is you're missing the student buy-in. They're not entirely convinced that this process is essential or beneficial to them in creating the classroom environment that they want, that will make them feel safe, that'll make the class more efficient. So you got to ask yourself, have I explained to my students why things need to be done this way? If you've watched any of my videos, you know that we need to explain it in the context of why it'll benefit the students. Now, what'll happen and what is happening when we don't explain the why? So naturally, of course, students think that they know more than we do. They are wise beyond their years. And so what happens when they don't know the why and we're not explaining it and they have this mindset of, I know what's good for me? They're going to resist and they're going to make their own routines and procedures. In the words of Julie Andrews, we gotta drink a spoonful of sugar to make this number 5 go down. The fifth reason why your students may not be following your class procedures is you allowed students to inadvertently make their own routines and procedures, and now you're having to undo them, which is harder. And I say this to you with love, but if you did not stop a behavior the first day, you just set a precedent. And what that precedent communicates to your students is that your procedures aren't really that important. I mean, you were willing to sacrifice them, let them slide on the first day just so you wouldn't rock the boat with your students because you didn't want your students to think you were mean on the first day. And what this did, without you maybe realizing it, is you authorize this to continue. So what students need to understand is that everything you do, even on day 1, is to help the class run optimally, to help meet their needs and expectations. And just as a side note, we're getting a little into the realm of classroom management here because your procedures, of course, are going to support your classroom management, your classroom expectations. So you tell your students, hey, you said you want a class where you do this, you hear this, you don't hear that. This procedure is going to help make that happen. So again, students need to understand that whatever it is that is happening as a class procedure is to support the classroom that they said they wanted. Now, you might be like, Cecilia, how do I convince my students that everything we do is there to help the class run optimally? So number one, I said it in our last topic, we need to explain the why, contextualize in the benefit for our students. And two, and this is really challenging because if you're a teacher like me who likes to have everything orchestrated to work like a synchronized swimming routine, and then something goes wrong, you know, we sprout a gray hair instantaneously. But believe it or not, you want to use inconveniences or situations where procedures were not followed to showcase the consequences of not following the procedures. When I was in the 5th grade, we were making balsa wood structures. So I don't know if they still do that project anymore or not, but anyway, we were so excited. And then our 5th grade teacher whipped out an X-Acto knife. Okay, so it's a crafting knife. And all of us 5th graders are like, oh, right? Shocking. And so she tells us, okay, just make sure, so she modeled for us how to cut, make sure you're not cutting in the air. So what does one of my adventurous little classmates do? He cuts in the air. Now, our teacher could have been stark raving upset because now there's like blood squirting all over her floor. But as she's holding this student's finger, right, and making sure that he's getting it taken care of, she's like, and this, folks, is why we have that procedure in place about not cutting in the air. So we can either lose our cool when something unforeseen or unfortunate happens, and or we can also take advantage of it to lend some weight to what it is that we're saying, because we know, we have the experience, we've seen what can happen. And this is how you convince students that everything you do in class is to help the class run optimally. The final reason your students may not be following class procedures is you've created routines, procedures, or have a class setup that juxtapose with the outcomes, the behaviors, and the goals that you want with your class. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. You know, as teachers, we're always running around somewhere. Now, let's say that for my convenience as the teacher, because I'm running around, you know, doing some coaching or going to a parent-teacher meeting or an IEP meeting or whatever, for my convenience, let's say that I hang a mirror on the door of my classroom, right? Because it's a quick way to check yourself as you go out the door. But let me ask you this, what's gonna happen? Yep, you guessed it. Students are gonna be crowding around your door. They're gonna be checking themselves out. So that mirror, forget, that is the last time you saw your mirror, because your students are now gonna hog the mirror. Essentially, it's going to become a distraction that's going to undermine the procedures that you're trying to establish. At the very least, these irritating little conflicts are going to cause distractions for you as the teacher, and you are creating classroom management issues for yourself. So make sure that your classroom setup, your classroom routines, and your procedures do not contradict what you want to see happening in your class. If you found this video helpful, I invite you to consider being a supporter of this channel by becoming a member of the League of Extraordinary Teachers, where you'll get early access to new videos, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, and more. You can also help me help other teachers by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video with a teacher friend. As always, I'm rooting for you. You got this, and I got you. Until next time, class dismissed.